Okay, so I believe you're alive. Just letting everyone kind of roll on through. Cool. Um, so I believe everything is good to go. So yeah, it's going to be a kind of just a trial run for the YouTube live stream. I want to do these more often. I want to do these on the weekend as well, during the middle of the week, and talk about the midweek update. Talk about the week so far. Today, crazy day, obviously. Right, want to go over that and talk about that, and then want to talk about the setups for the remainder of the week. So, um, with the watch that's being posted, I do want to cover the main setups that we're looking at, and if you do have any chart requests, please let me know. You can throw them down in the YouTube chat, or if you are, on Discord, you can throw them down in Discord as well. But first things first, let's cover the trades taken today. So just want to get this out of the way first. Looking at the plans from this morning, let me pull these up really quickly here. Okay, so pre-market plans from this morning, right? Pretty much started with a small gap up to start the session, right? Really didn't have much for the most part. Small gap up, pretty much flat. We were holding 41.20 and QQQ were holding 317, right? So for the most part, or excuse me, these actually weren't pre-market plans. I'm blanking. We didn't have any pre-market plans for this morning, actually. The main setups, though, that we were covering, that was the pre-market plans for yesterday. The main setups we were covering were NVIDIA, right, pretty much over 200, or under 198 for puts. And then AMD, we were looking at them under 196.50 or over 100 for calls. Calls as well over 96.50, but for the most part, it ended up just flushing. So we're looking at puts there. My main focus, though, was Microsoft, and you can see Microsoft ended up ripping through 285 in the second half of the day. So the main focus was Microsoft coming into the day. I really liked this one at the beginning of the day for calls above 285 because looking at the daily, we had an inside day yesterday, right? Really bullish chart. And then in the middle of the day when the market opened, we kind of ended up pulling back here and we were looking like, we could potentially sell off under 276. So Microsoft went from being, my main top watch for a breakout trade to the main breakout trade to back being a main focus to the long side. Now missed the breakout in the second half of the day, but we pretty much were waiting for a majority of the day for FOMC. We ended up taking UAL calls, and UAL is back on watch. It's on the watch list, and with UAL we have a double inside week. Right, looking at the weekly, so a double inside week, pretty much a weekly bull flag here. So we took calls, or I took calls above 52 with the risk of about 51.50 to 51. Okay, 51 here, the recent high from, or the high from 214. Okay, it was also the area, if we look at the 15-minute and the 5-minute, is pretty much where we opened up at. Right, 51 here, kind of and also an area that we had support yesterday, or we held the higher low. So 51 was kind of the risk there. Really liked the look of this trade. We had, airlines definitely showing a little bit of strength at the open. We broke through 52. We ran about 12 cents, ended up pulling back, consolidating. Really tried to print higher lows here intraday, and then failed and broke down. Right. So once it broke down 51 on this candle here, ended up just cutting that trade for a smaller loss. Relatively smaller loss. And waited for FOMC. Okay, so with this trade, this morning if you did catch, the live stream, which some of you definitely were there, I talked about, keeping size small before FOMC, right? FOMC, obviously, we'll see a little bit more momentum post FOMC, which we definitely did, right? Look at the breakout here, and some momentum intraday with a little bit of the pullback, but for the most part, that momentum ended up ripping to the upside after Powell, stated that he's not going to have a 75 BPS rate hike. Okay, so pretty big move in the second half of the day. Now with UAL, wanted to treat it more as a lotto, but I really liked the look here, and I'm very interested in re-entering this trade once we can reclaim 52. So we closed at 51.90 today. So tomorrow, potentially we look for a re-entry here, as it could, break out of this daily bull flag and set up for 53.50 to even 55. So I really do like that. But today that trade ended up stopping me out. Now, taking a look at SPY. So SPY was really looking for two things. Okay, for one, obviously what Powell is going to say. And the second one, I kind of wanted to do the inverse of the initial reaction. Right, because for the most part we see a quick move to either side, and then for the most part we do see a rejection and then a pullback, right? So for the most part, after the initial reaction, we tend to do the opposite. Okay, and we've been seeing that for quite some time now. So with SPY, we ended up taking two puts. We took the 415 puts, and then we ended up taking the 412 puts. Okay, so looking at the 5-minute, right, we took puts on this candle here. Okay, you're going to be able to see it a little bit better on the 1 minute. Again, I don't really use the 1 minute, but for the most part, after we had that initial reaction, right, ended up taking puts after it failed to really break through 420. What's 420? 420 is a psychological level. If we take a look at ESF, 420 is 4,200, right? We've actually popped through 4,200 a little bit there. We hit a high of about like 4,208 and then ended up pulling back. Right, so if we do see the initial reaction, in this case, the initial reaction was to the upside, and we popped right into a key resistance, right? We failed to reclaim it. If we were able to reclaim 420, right, on SPY, then I would look for calls, right? I want to see momentum above 420. I want to see, aggression, kind of like what we saw here, and then it just ended up breaking out. So if we saw this kind of reaction first, yeah, sure, we could look for calls. But for the most part, I was looking for the initial reaction and then wanted to trade the opposite. Right, so puts was the focus. So we pop into 420, take puts at about 11:02, right? Looking for a move, potentially back down near 416, maybe even 415. Okay, so we take those 415 puts, kind of a little bit of a wild ride, right? Popped higher into about 420, again, second time, printed a lower high, and then we finally got the breakdown. And when I trade lottos, whether it's a Friday, whether it's a Wednesday, doesn't matter. It's always the same kind of thing, where I like to take majority of the position off, right, and then raise stops to break even pretty much immediately. Okay, so if you're up 25, 30% on a lotto that expires the same day, in my opinion, you have to book that trade. I'm not trying to swing for the fences. I'm not trying to take, 5K to 50K with a lotto, right? I'm looking for quicker profit and, get the profit in and move on, right? With lottos, especially with FOMC, we can see quick reversals, right? Where you could be down 50% and then end up being green 50%, or you could be up 50% and then end up being down 50%, right? And we actually saw that today. We were down with the 415 puts, we were down, I think like 30%, and then ended up breaking down, and we were able to take profit for about 20 to 25%, and then we stopped out on the last partial at break even, and then we re-entered SPY puts here on this candle about when it broke down near 416. We rolled up into the 412 puts, and I mean these were basically dead. We were down 50, almost 60%, and then in 3 or 4 minutes we get back green and we actually take profit for like 12 or 15%. Right, it was 1.28 and then we got a 1.5 fill. So, and the opposite could happen, right? You can be up 20, 30, 40%, and then in a couple minutes you could be down 20, 30, 40%, right? So with lottos, I always like to size small, take majority of profit off, and then, if it works out, if that other partial goes to 100, 200%, great. You have a little bit more profit on top of already a green trade. If it ends up going reverse on you, you stop out and you're still green, right? You never want to hope that a lotto turns around on you. You want to know when you go into the trade that you could potentially lose, everything that you're putting into. You never want to put more than you're willing to lose into a lotto. It's pretty terrible risk management, right? So that's how I approached SPY, and then ended up, having to leave at about 11:30, and pretty much from 11:30 on to the close. So we had a face ripper of a squeeze, right? Broke through 420, ran 10 points almost. Okay, so huge move. And that was the momentum, right, that we were really looking for. For me to take calls, I wanted to see this kind of momentum through 420 at the start, but it kind of consolidated. And for the most part, really didn't see much of a reaction. I was anticipating more reaction kind of, starting at 11, and then we ended up getting, a decent move about 30 to 40 minutes after FOMC started. Or when Powell started speaking, and then we ended up getting a pretty decent breakout. So those are the three trades for the day. Ended up slightly in the green due to the UAL loss, right? But ended back in the green. So definitely a trickier week, right? Let's take a look. Last week, so here's Monday, Friday of last week, Thursday of last week, Wednesday, Tuesday, Monday. No real trend. One day we're green, next day we're red, next day we're green, gap up, a little bit green there, and then red, and then pull back, and then we end up bouncing. Okay, so it's been a tricky week. But now that we have, major tech earnings out of the way, we have FOMC out of the way, we should be able to see, some sort of follow through that lasts longer than one day. Recently with FOMC, what we have seen, we see, for the most part, we do see a face ripper of a move, and then the next day we actually pull back. So tomorrow, the key thing that I'm looking for is ultimately, are we going to be able to hold higher lows? Okay, that's going to be the big thing, right? That's going to be the big thing. Are we going to be able to hold higher lows, right, above ultimately 425? Edel says he missed the SPY plays. SPY plays were definitely quick. You have to be quick with lottos. It's even tough for those that are on, voice chat with me to get exactly the same fills. And it was a wild ride. We were down 30, 40%, and then ended up going green. So they're definitely a wild ride. They're fun, in a way. They're more fun, obviously, when you end up going green, right? But if you were able to catch those calls, which it looks like you're able to, those calls above 420, then yeah, definitely was a saving grace. But for the remainder of the week, and into next week, what we need to see here with QQQ and on SPY, or ESF, right, is my main focus. I like watching ESF a little bit more. With QQQ, what we need to see is higher lows ultimately being printed above this 320 to 325 range. We could even look at the 317 range, but 317 to 325, we need to see this range being held by the bulls, right? Because one day doesn't really change the trend. Yes, this was an insane move, but the question is, on these pullbacks, how aggressive are the buyers going to be, right? If they are aggressive, right, if we can hold, ultimately on ESF, if we take a look at the daily, we definitely need to hold this 4275 area, right? We're back into this key zone of 4275 and 4300, an area where we stopped out last week and ended up selling off, right? So we're back into this key resistance. So we need to hold here, right? Ideally, what we want to see for a decent move to the upside is a back test and or a day of consolidation or a day of digestion, right? If ESF can hold 4275 on a back test and then we reclaim 4300, great. We should be able to move 20 points at least to the upside. with QQQ, we're at that 330 level, an area that we saw significant selling, the week prior. If we can hold 327 to 325 and then we can reclaim 330 after the buyers prove to us, okay, the buyers are interested in 325 and 327. So if we're able to break through this supply zone, we should be able to ultimately run 4 points, maybe even 8 points back up into 338. Okay, so tomorrow is going to be a huge day for the bulls to prove themselves, right? That they really are interested in buying this dip at these levels. Okay, so we have to focus on that. Not get too excited that okay, the market had a ripper of a day today. Don't get FOMO, especially on moves like this, because what we've seen recently on the FOMC days is a complete reversal the day after, right? In some cases. So is that going to be the same kind of situation? Maybe, right? But time is going to tell, and our job as traders is to follow price action, right? And that's the most important thing. So tomorrow, the main levels that I'm looking at on ESF, we can even pull down to this 4260 area, but this 4260, let's say, and then 4300. 4300 is the key level to reclaim, and then QQQ, the key level to reclaim is 330. I really want to see the buyers hold 325 at least. At this point, we are holding that 317 area, which is the swing low. Okay, let me just kind of highlight this level here. Right, this purple area, swing low. We tested it on 224, we tested it on 314, and both attempts we held, and we were able to see pretty significant moves off of this support of 317. We ended up breaking down last Friday, right? Monday we reclaimed it, Tuesday we reclaimed it, today we tested it again, and then ripped all the way back up into 330, right? So key level for me is going to be 330. If the buyers can reclaim 330, great. Should be able to see some more upside. But ideally, we do see a little bit of digestion. Buyers confirm, the bulls confirm that they are interested in price at these levels, and then we could potentially move higher. Okay. So that's QQQ and ESF. Now, looking at the watch list for tomorrow, we have a good amount of plays. About 12 plays. Or 10 plays if you don't include QQQ and SPY. So let me pull this up here, right? So the watch list for tomorrow: UAL, Nvidia, Twitter, Tesla, PayPal, Netflix, Home Depot, AMD, Microsoft, Snap. Okay. For the most part, the watch list has stayed the same for a majority of the week, right? With a little bit of exceptions and a little bit different plays. Now, UAL is the first trade that I'm looking at. And again, if you have chart requests, let me know. You can put them in chat on YouTube, or you can put them in chat on Discord if you do have any. So just let me know. But looking at UAL, again, we have a double inside weekly pattern. Okay, so some really nice consolidation. And one of my favorite setups to trade are consolidation breakouts, and this is one of them. All right, so ultimately, I like it over 52. 52 should set us up for 53.50, which is the next resistance that we're looking at. Let me maximize this sell. There we go. So 53.50 is the next resistance. If we can clear this 53.50, then we have 55 on deck. I'm looking at next week's calls just to give this a little bit more time. It is, tomorrow is Thursday, and I want to see how this develops, and I want to let it develop. I don't really want to take this week's and hope it gets near 53 by Friday, because those premiums are going to get killed. If we traded if we traded this week's expiration when we took this trade today, these contracts hit negative 50+% as it broke down 51, right? So definitely want to give this a little bit more time. Ignore that. To develop, right? So if it can reclaim 52, we'll look at next week's 53 calls. Really like the look. It's been holding up fairly well on the weekly, right? We had that earnings. When was earnings? About 420 to 421. We had those earnings, and we've been holding higher lows since those earnings, right? We really haven't flushed with the overall market. Price action is strong. The dip buyers are interested on these pullbacks. So if the market can show support, or if UAL gets any sort of a bullish catalyst, it should easily make a run for 53.50. So really do like this one. Haven't been interested in a swing in a while, but I am interested in a swing on this trade. Okay, only if the overall market can hold higher lows off of today's bounce, right? That's gonna be big. Okay, next one. Airbnb. Yeah, I'll get to Airbnb. Let's actually cover Airbnb right now. So Airbnb had earnings. I think it had earnings yesterday. Yeah. So daily pretty messy. Just to be frank. Yeah, daily's pretty messy, but we were able to hold about 150, 150 psychological level there. Looking at the weekly, I do like this candle. Yeah, decent bounce. Weekly trying to hold the higher low. Airbnb can always be tricky. For me, I like calls above 160. Let's look at the 4-hour as well. Yeah, 160. I like calls above 160. This is an area where we've popped into multiple times and have failed. But during this time, we didn't have much support from the overall market. So if it does get through 160, I would probably, depending on when it triggers, if it triggers tomorrow, if it triggers Friday, I would definitely look at next week's or further. So the 513 expiration or even further. 165 calls can work above 160. Yeah, I like that. For puts, you can look at puts under 150, but the buyers are pretty aggressive in this range. So I ultimately would just wait for calls above 160. The 4-hour, I like it. The hourly, let's check this out. I like this as well. So yeah, wait for 160, and I think you could be able to get a pretty decent trade on it. Yeah, it was a little bit of a support here about a month ago, and now it's acting as a resistance. So 160 is going to be your range. And then above 160, you got 162, 165, and once it clears 165, you have about 170. So yeah, it looks good. The daily, again, the daily is kind of messy, but 160 is your best bet for calls. Okay, now NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is next one on the watch list. Finally reclaimed 200. Okay, NVIDIA has definitely is going to be a main focus for me in the coming days and in the coming weeks at this 200 resistance. Okay, so I removed all the lines for now, or the resistance and support levels, just to clear things up a little bit. So with NVIDIA here at 200, it's a major psychological level. Okay, if it can hold 200, then ultimately we have a run back up into 209 and about 213. Okay, so we could potentially move, another 6+ points back into that 208, basically that 208.75, right? 208.75 was an area, it was a previous all-time high. Once we cleared 208.75, we hit a new all-time high of about 230, right? And then once 230 broke, we ended up running pretty much all the way up into 347. So 208.75 is the next key level for NVIDIA to reclaim post 200. But as long as we can hold 200, I like it for a move back up into that resistance. When we broke down 208.75, an area that we held for a majority of the 2022 year, right? We never really got a back test. So, this could be a back test to that 208.75 area, right? Since we're reclaiming 200. The key thing there is when we get into that range, are we actually going to be able to reclaim it, or is it going to be, a lower high setup and we actually fail and pull back? Okay, so interesting range. Again, about 8 points and 75 cents of a range. But for now, really do like calls above 200. So tomorrow, since we're already above it and we close at about 203, my interest is going to be, are we going to be able to hold near 202? Are we going to be able to hold 200 and actually get a back test? If we back test 200 and we hold and we see ESF and the Qs hold and show more support, then calls are going to work, right? We'll look at next week's calls above 200, right? 205 calls can work. We can look at this week's as well. 205 calls can work as well for this week, but definitely a little bit more risky. So we have to look at the price action more in the morning, but definitely is going to be a top watch here at 200, right? Just cleared it with ease since the overall market was breaking out. But if we do see a little bit more back testing, now that FOMC is over, I believe we can make a move back up into 208.75 fairly easy, okay? So let's keep a very close eye on that. All right, and then the next one is Twitter. So number The third one on the watch list here is Twitter. Twitter is a daily consolidation setup. I should zoom out a little bit there. And it's for me, I'm actually more interested in puts. Okay, at this point, last Friday, we were showing some significant strength near 50, and then we ended up failing at 50 and pulling back. And for the last 3 days, it's been really struggling to find any sort of new buyers here at 49 and really lagging on the breakouts to the upside when the overall market breaks out, right? So Monday, we had that pretty nice bounce going into the close. Didn't see much, barely really moved, didn't take out the highs, just kind of consolidated. Tuesday kind of consolidated again. And even today, we didn't see a ton of strength. So if the overall market fails, which we've seen recently, if it fails and it breaks under 48 again, I want to play puts because this is a name that's been showing a little bit more weakness and not really moving with the overall market. So if the overall market pulls back, since Twitter is a name that's showing relative weakness, we can look at puts under 48. For me to want to take calls, I want to see some sort of news above 50. If we don't have a catalyst above 50, then most likely we'll be patient with it and wait for confirmation or wait for back testing. Okay, so definitely more interested in puts under 48, but we'll keep an eye on it. And then Tesla back into a key resistance of 950. Okay, what's the significance of 950? 950 is an area where we really consolidated from about January 25th all the way up into February 9th, pulled back, and then once we cleared 950, we ran about 200 points into 1150. Okay, so this is a huge level to reclaim after printing a higher low on the daily. We printed a higher low above 823, kind of took some time to really show confirmation of a move higher. Yesterday was tricky. We broke through 915, ended up pulling back. Right, today broke under 900, reclaimed it, and then ripped with the overall market right into 950. So far, we're not able to hold it after hours. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens tomorrow at this level. Okay, I like calls above 950. 980 calls can work. We definitely want to treat those a little bit more as a lotto since we're looking at this week's and they expire in 2 days, so we can quickly be up 50%, but we can also be quickly down 50%, so it's not something you really want to size into. If you're looking for more time, next week's 1100 calls can work. That would be my main focus. For puts, if we actually fail at 934 tomorrow and we see ESF and the Qs also fail, right, post FOMC, then I would look at puts for a move back down near 915 to 900. Also, this needs to be taken with the lighter size because we may see buyers step up, at 920 or, 922, somewhere in that range, right? Don't know exactly where, but it is a possibility that the buyers step up, in that range of 934 to 915. So you definitely want to keep a lighter size and be actively selling your position when you're in the green, okay? But if we can hold 934, break through 950 with that market support or any sort of catalyst, should be in store for a pretty decent move. Yeah, Tesla, I think Tesla can be definitely back up at that 1100 range soon. Yeah, really nice move today. So I like that one a lot. We're just going to have to see how it acts at 950. And then question in Discord. So yeah, bull trap tomorrow. Tomorrow's going to be huge. Okay, we've recently seen, at post FOMC, we've seen, basically we give back the entire run during FOMC. So tomorrow is definitely going to be a day where we want to be patient. I'm not going to be looking to trade anything right at the open. What I want to see is ESF and the Qs actually pull back and the buyers buy the pullback. If the buyers buy the pullback, in that range of 325, 327 and hold, then for me, I'm not going to call it a bull trap. I'm actually going to call it, a potential breakout. So really want to see the buyers hold on the pullback. And if they hold the pullback, then we could be definitely aggressive. So yeah, I'll wait for that. If we reclaim 330 and we see a ton of volume come in, right, then I'll play calls. But yeah, it's going to be really important to see how the buyers act. I'm looking at the Qs. But yeah, looking at SPY as well. We need to see those buyers hold, okay, on the pullbacks. They need to step up. But yeah, good question. All right, and then PayPal. So PayPal is going to be an interesting one. They have SQ has earnings tomorrow, and PayPal will be affected by that. But I really do like the look here. Daily consolidation. If this gets through, I'm looking at calls above 93. Okay. So let me remove this. All right, so 93 over the high of this candle. If it breaks through 93, ultimately, you know, has room back up into that 98 range, and then potentially 100. So since SQ does have earnings tomorrow, a likely scenario is we kind of just consolidate leading into those earnings, and then depending on how SQ does, PayPal should be able to move in sympathy with that and potentially break out, or break down. It's just going to depend. So most likely we'll wait for SQ earnings, but I do want to keep this one on watch. It really does have a hard time finding real follow through under 100. We had a little bit, or we had a couple of days there where we saw some decent momentum under 100, but yeah, I want to keep an eye on this. Definitely not a main focus for me, but with SQ, I want to focus on it. And then Netflix here. Netflix is going to be a top watch as well. Okay. Let's actually make this a little bit cleaner. All right. So Netflix, we're looking at the hourly here, right? So with this setup, it's a key level reclaim. That key level is 200. Okay. The next level I'm looking for is 205. All right. So Netflix broke through 200 going into the close, like a lot of names broke out, and tested about 205, but failed to really break through going into the close. And right now we're trading at 202.80 after hours. Okay. So my main focus here with Netflix is, are we going to be able to hold the back test of 200, which we have failed to do on every single attempt of the break. Okay, we've broken through 200. Let's see, one time there, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. Now it's a sixth time, right? So we've tried to reclaim 200 6 times, and today so far it's successful, right? But tomorrow is going to be the big tell. Are the buyers going to buy the dip above 200 now that we've closed near 205, right? We popped through 200 here, hit 205, pulled back, and the buyers were no longer interested, and it sold off back into 190. Same thing here. We broke through 200, moved a little bit, buyers were interested in the pullback. Netflix broke through 200 here. Buyers, look like they were potentially interested, and then they sold off, and then today it broke down. Okay, so tomorrow is going to be the big tell on whether or not the buyers want 200 or not. If they do, great. Netflix has the ability to run, potentially 5%, 6% off of this 200 level. Okay, right? So 210, 212, potentially, right? So really do like this one, but we need to see it hold 200 first. If it breaks through 205 immediately with no sort of catalyst tomorrow, most likely won't take that trade. I want to wait for confirmation. And confirmation for me at this point is a backtest of 200 and confirmation that buyers are interested in buying it at 200, right? Because it can pop through 205 and the sellers can come into play, pull it back down into demand, which is 200, and then actually get a potential breakout. So really interested to see what happens there at 200, and then we can look for a potential trade. Home Depot finally got that breakout through 313. Okay, this one was on watch for a while in this range of about 313 and 300. Got the reclaim, and for the most part, got the highest close that it has had in a while. Okay, right, we closed, where did this candle close at? This candle closed at 315.14, and this candle closed at 315.30. Okay, so about 15 cents more. So the highest close that we've had in a while, but we closed above 313, and that's the big thing. Now the next step is, do we hold 313, which is the top of this range? If we do hold 313, get a reclaim of 316, we have 319 and potentially 322 on deck. So this could be a start of a larger bounce, but again, we need to see buyer support at 313 before we can say that. Right, just because we closed above 313 once doesn't mean anything. We saw a close here and then we quickly pulled back down into 300. Again, one day doesn't change the trend. we need to see buyers step up above 313. So if we can see some back testing of 313, buyers step up, reclaim 316, great. We can look for calls and a potential trade. Okay, that's the key thing and the key setup that I'm looking at. All right, so if we do see a pullback into 313 and the buyers are interested, and then we go from red to green potentially, that is confirmation of a move higher for me. Whoops. All right, AMD, all about 100. Insane bounce today. I mean, what a crazy move. So AMD today, gapped up on decent earnings, right? They beat earnings expectations, sold off all morning, filled the gap from yesterday, close to filling the entire gap up, so it almost went red, and then ended up closing at high day near 100, right? Huge, huge range today. So the key level is 100. All right, if we reclaim 100, should be able to move at least 1 point, maybe 2 to 3 points, depending on the overall market. What I'm really interested in is, are we going to hold 96.50 if we do see a pullback? Okay, this is a very hard one to have conviction to the long side just because of the range we saw today, right? It moved, what, almost 8 points off of the lows? Close to 8 points off the lows, yeah. Or 7 points. Yeah, 7 to 8 points off the lows, and we are approaching a key resistance, right? So for me, it's harder to have conviction with this kind of trade. I'd be interested in a potential pullback off of 96.50, but if we lose 96.50 again, we can set up for another pullback into 94, and then we hold a higher low on the daily and potentially bounce, right? So this one is going to be tricky. I don't think it's going to be, as easy as 1, 2, 3. I think it is going to be kind of a battle there a bit. If we see a pop into 100 and we don't have full market support, that can be an area where we see a reversal. For me to take calls, what I need to see is a reclaim of 100 and then higher lows above 100. I need to see the pullbacks being bought above 100 before looking to be aggressive. Okay. The next key is going to be if we close above 100, right? So if we kind of just consolidate near 100 all day tomorrow, but we're actually able to close above, then Friday should be able to present us with some decent trades. Okay, so not a main focus, but really do want to keep this one on watch as we approach 100. If we don't see a lot of support from the market tomorrow, I think we can get in on some pretty decent put plays. So we'll definitely keep an eye on either direction tomorrow with this one. Okay, all right. Now Microsoft will be a top watch. Okay, as we're approaching the top of this range of 292. So trading in a range of about 276 to 292. Today got that breakout through 285, so it ended up running, really nicely through 285. Kicking myself, I missed it, but wasn't even able to take the trade. I wasn't around on my computer. But really nice move through 285, ran into 290. Okay, so again, looking at the daily, we are in a daily consolidation range. So 292 is that area. We do have a gap to fill from about 292.60 up to 296.25. So there is a range or a gap to fill. So let's see if we can fill it tomorrow. This will be a top watch. If we see a pullback into 285, that could be a potential dip buy opportunity only if we're seeing the proper price action. Right? Obviously the volume was above average today just because of FOMC. So let's see what happens at this 290 to 292 range. Needs to clear it with overall market support or a catalyst, and then we can look for calls. Ultimately, my main target above 292 will be this 298 to 300 range. I think it could quickly get back up there if we have that overall market support. So depending on what we see tomorrow, the 295 calls for Friday can work, or we look at the 300 calls for next week as a potential swing. Okay. And then the last one is Snap. So Snap held a higher low above 26.50 and held 28, and we closed above 30. Okay, so the significant thing with 28 is we held it all of 2022. Okay, we pulled back here from 124, to 128. We moved higher, yanked off of earnings, and then gapped all the way back up, back into 35. All right, so a little blimp there, but nothing really at all. And then we pulled back into 28, held, bounced up into 40. So is this the third attempt at a bounce? And do we see it move, like we saw the last time? Do we see it move into 35? Do we see it move back up into 38, maybe even 40? It's possible. It's going to depend on the overall market and or any sort of catalyst that Snap may have. But as long as Snap holds 28, I think it's a pretty decent dip buy opportunity at this support. Okay, I'm looking for calls above 30, right? 31 calls can work above 30. We could also look at next week's 32 calls. Once this reclaims about 31.34, 31.35, sets it up for 35. Okay, so really do like the look here. Looking at the hourly, again, we pulled back there under 28, and we were actually bouncing back above 28 before FOMC, and then we got the breakout through 30 after FOMC. So tomorrow, this is definitely going to be a top watch for me to see how it reacts at 30. If we can hold 30, I think we see it move back up into 31, 35 pretty quickly. Okay, I really like the fact that we held a higher low above the recent lows. All right, so we broke under 28 for about 2 days there, but both days we quickly recovered. Right, we broke under one day, the next day tested again, recovered it, and then today we held higher lows. So really, really do like the look of this one. Will be a top watch for tomorrow. Okay, and that's really all the names that we're looking at. Covered QQQ, covered ESF and SPY. So again, for tomorrow, top watches will be NVIDIA, Netflix, Microsoft, Snap, Home Depot definitely will be one. Tesla is there. I want to see how it acts near 950, but those are the main top watches for tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, AMD was a crazy one. That's for sure. All right. But does anybody have any other questions before I end it? I am curious because this is the first time I'm doing a live stream. It's kind of a trial run for me just to see how good this, the screen looks. Is the quality good? Is the quality bad? I've had some comments where I post a video on YouTube, and since I have a widescreen monitor or an ultra-wide monitor, it can look a little bit funky. So let me know if it looks good or if it looks bad, and I could potentially work on some settings. But yeah. Yeah, let me know if you have any questions, and we can go from there. Cool. Yeah, no problem. It'll be posted to YouTube, so if you have, if you want to watch it late, excuse me, later in the day or later this evening, you definitely can. All right, but yeah, definitely enjoyed this. I do like kind of the Wednesday midweek recap, and I definitely want to do these more in the future. But yeah, if you have any questions later in the evening, please let me know. You can reach out to me, and message me on Discord or Twitter or whatever works. Yeah, so I'll probably end the stream here. Hope everyone enjoyed that. For those that did show up, I know it's kind of a weird time in the day. Some people are having dinner, some people are just getting off work, so it's definitely in a weird time. But yeah, we'll talk to everybody a little bit later, and we'll talk to you all tomorrow morning, and hopefully, we get some momentum back, and we can get some follow through and focus on our breakout trades, the bread and butter, and make some money. So yeah, talk to everybody tomorrow, and have a great evening. Take care.